Hello and welcome to another episode of Historic Hindsight. I'm John, that's Tom, and today we're talking about Polk and Old Man.
That's right, Johnny. Polk and old men. Polk and old men. We're talking about President, our 11th one. We're already up to number 11. Seems like we just started this.
Yeah, that's quick.
Moving right along. James Polk, one of our easiest dark side presidents to do.
Oh, because he did nothing bad, and he was a great guy, and even better president.
Or the opposite.
The opposite.
Yeah,
the
just
opposite.
exactly the opposite, yeah.
Even
at his time, he was considered the worst president at it. Like, when he was president, people were like, yeah, this is the worst.
So you can't do the different time argument here. Like with a lot of them, that with the slaves and stuff, you think, well, whatever, we just forgave that then. But this guy, even then, people were looking at what he was doing, and he was not great.
Nope, not great. So let's begin where we always begin, Johnny. Slavery. Dude owned them. 56 at the height. Now, he owned, obviously, more than 56 through his lifetime, but 56 at the height.
All at once, he had 56 combined. But throughout, obviously, you cycle him in and out and through, right?
Yeah. Now, what makes him particularly bad as a slave owner is on the campaign trail, Polk attempted to hide his purchasing of slaves. Because you see, at this point in time in the history of the United States, slavery is not really, it's not going, like, it's there. But the North is getting more aggressive about not wanting them. And so there's this idea of benevolent slave owners where I didn't buy the slaves. I didn't sell the slaves. I inherited them from my pops, or I was given them as a wedding gift and a dowry, so it's not my fault, but I mean, I'm not going to.
And then you free them if you are going to be a nice, good, moral person. Not say, oh, I got this from somebody else, so it's okay. That's not how it works.
So while Polk was president, he used his wife and a series of other subsidiaries to purchase slaves. 19 of them while he was president.
He essentially
in 4
set
years
up Shell
he purchased
Corporation.
Yeah, he set up a shell corporation to purchase slaves. 19 of them while president for only one term, 4 years. 19 slaves bought in 4 years.
Wow.
13 of them were children, Johnny.
Well, I mean, that's just smart investment, right? You get more bang for your buck that way.
Well, that's what he was thinking. As children, you can work them longer. They can be used for breeding stock. So most of the children that he bought were females.
Shoot. That's not.
Now, I did try to do a little bit of research. I didn't see any claims that he had been having relations with his slaves. I didn't see any claims that, like, Polk's got, like, I'm not saying he didn't, but I'm also saying I didn't. It's not as readily available as, like, Thomas Jefferson, we know he did. Yeah. Not that going on. So.
Okay, so maybe that's the silver lining here.
If there is a silver lining.
If you can find one.
Now, the little bit of problem with his logic here is that, younger slaves will last longer. You can use them as breeding stocks. His breeding stock couldn't have been that great because he inherited 53 slaves from his dad when his dad died. And at his height, he owned 59. So if you're doing the math at home.
Well, I mean, people who breed, puppies and cats and stuff, they don't just multiply them. They, off they go. Right?
Except his plantations had a 51%.
Selling slaves.
No, his plantations had a 51% child mortality rate.
That's where it is. Okay, is that high? That seems high.
That's high.
It seems like if you're investing that much money into something, you would want
the average reports of slave mortality rate, child mortality rate, that I could find was ranging anywhere between 35 to 41% was the average. So 51 is.
So let's
go higher.
On the high end. Yeah.
On the higher end, yeah. He was also notoriously known as a pretty. Well, he didn't like to be at his plantation, so he was never really there. So he didn't oversee the plantation himself. So he had a habit of hiring really bad overseers that were really aggressive, including one that shot a slave with birdshot out of a shotgun. Or like shits and giggles. Multiple slaves beaten nearly to death. Even the fellow slave owners were like, dude, you gotta not hire these dudes. Now, to his credit, he did fire the dude that shot the slave with a shotgun, but he kept hiring other ones that had a very heavy hand. On top of that, he also liked to Well, he always said he didn't want to separate slaves from their families, but buying 13 children and not their parents,
yeah, I don't think he bought the
says
parents
significantly
also.
otherwise. And he also had a habit of moving his slaves further and further south because he thought that the further south they went, the less likely they would be to run away. So,
Just making life harder was the idea. Harder to further to run.
further
Okay.
to run, it's a lot hard. I mean, if you're in Kentucky, it's not that hard to get to. I mean, it's not hard to get to Canada, but like you're there.
It's
Like
easier
Indiana's a
than
river
from
hop
Georgia.
away, and yeah, it's a hell of a lot
Like-
easier than like Georgia or deep south of Mississippi. Now, as a congressman, he's going to oversee two horrible acts that he votes in favor of. The first is the gag rule, which prevents the debating of slavery in Congress. I wonder
it's
why
just-
he would vote in favor of that one.
Yeah, that's so instead, this is like people are saying, oh well, there's issues with slavery that need to be addressed. We need to talk about this, and he's just like, no, we're not going to do that at all.
Not gonna do that.
anymore. We're just you can't discuss it, so nothing will change, and everything will be great for me and my fellow slave owners.
Yeah, this part might be my favorite. He votes for the Indian Removal Act and then buys up a fuck ton of land in Mississippi that was once
Oh,
Indian
suddenly
land
available?
that was recently freed up.
That seems like it's a personal interest, like a person he's getting.
Yeah, he
personal-
buys a large swath of land in Lalabusha County, whatever. I'm not from Mississippi, whatever that county is in Mississippi. And then that's where he moves all of his troublesome slaves. He moves them down there. Now,
his troublesome ones.
his troublesome ones, yeah, because it's
Just
harder
so
to run
he
away.
set up a slave prison camp essentially
Basically, yeah, it is.
by stealing land from natives.
Good guy, right? Yeah,
Yeah, he's
this is
so
somebody
far,
who made decisions
is
to run
swell.
our country. Now, let's get to him as president. First off, it was kind of like everybody did not expect him to get the ticket for the Democratic Party. They're like, it's kind of like a whoopsie. But since like
Were there
none of
just
the
too
other three
many
front
people,
runners
or-
could get like a consensus, they're all like, well, fine, we'll settle on that dude over that one, that guy.
that. Maybe it was something that important. You would take it more seriously.
Maybe. Now, when he
Hindsight.
ran, he did say, "I'm only going to run for one term. Only want one term," which he does. He does follow through with that.
Okay.
He only does have one term. He does not run for
But is
re-election in
he-
the second term. But he also dies like.
But is he
6 months
saying
after.
that so he can do whatever the hell he wants and just be like, well, I'm not running for a second term anyway, so let's
So
light this
fuck it,
place
we
on
get-
fire.
It might. It might be. What are they? There's a term for that when you're on your second term and you can't run again and you just start doing whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah, I
as a
don't know
president,
what
I
it
remember
is.
the
Let
term.
us
But there's,
know.
there's a specific term for that. Now, he believes in manifest destiny. So as president, he wants the seat of shining sea, Johnny. And what better way to get that than picking a fight with Mexico, who owns all the land that we haven't taken pretty much
Sure.
between
Yeah.
Louisiana and California.
Yeah, we got to get the rest of that.
Now, when Texas won its independence from Mexico, it signed a treaty, and there were some stipulations to that treaty. Like, you can't join the United States. Like, you are going to be your own independent nation, and you're going to stay your own independent nation. Don't join the United States. And so when Polk takes over, he promptly annexes Texas to become part of the United States, like, in his first 6 months.
So, all right, so even before Texas was part of the United States, they were practicing breaking treaties and just doing whatever the hell they wanted to anyway. That's okay.
Yeah, it's nice, isn't it? Now, despite the
great.
outrage of large swaths of the United States is saying, hey, look, we don't
do
want a war with Mexico. We're not about colonization. Ironically, at least, look, we're not about colonization.
More colonization. We feel
like,
like we've colonized what we
The
want.
Indian land's fine. We don't want to colonize like other, like, look, they're a baby country. They just got their independence, like 25 years ago. Mexico did.
Sure.
So let's not. Let's why would we pick on the little guy? They also barely existed after ousting Spain, and then got their ass kicked by Texas, so barely exist as an entity after Texas. So it's like, look, why would we want to pick on these little guys? So please don't pick on these little guys.
Don't pick on the little guys when there are littler guys to pick
Yeah,
on.
kind of. Yeah, I mean, they're more brown than the Mexicans, I guess. I really don't understand the logic here of the early Americans, why they thought Mexico was. But they didn't want to pick on Mexico. Like, the majority of the United States didn't want to go to war with Mexico. Now, problem is, they annexed Texas, which pisses off Mexico. The other big problem is the border.
Naturally.
The border that was established during this treaty was up for debate. And by up for debate, I mean the Texans felt it was up for debate. I think everybody else in the world was like, no, that it sets up as the... So the treaty sets up the Nueces River as the traditional border of what Texas is, because that's what the border was when Spain owned the land, and they're like, that's the border. That's your Texas border. Yeah. But Texas wanted it to be set at the Rio Grande. So they just continued to settle north of the Rio Grande, and we're like, this is our land now. Fucking do something about it. Okay. So you pair that up with the hostilities already coming from Mexico from us annexing Texas as a part of the United States. And what does Polk do to calm things down? He sends a shit ton of troops right to sit on the fucking Rio Grande River.
Yep. Yeah. There you go. Try us.
And unfortunately, they do. They don't just run away. They don't just say, no, fine, you've got it. So it creates a little bit more of a tuft. And so then, this is the best part, Polk goes to Cuba, where he meets with Santa Anna, who's been ousted from Mexico because he was like the president/military dictator of Mexico like 3 times already. And so they've ousted him. It's very much a Napoleon thing going on with Santa Anna. And he talks to Santa Anna and goes, hey, why don't you go down to Mexico and help our boys out and get this, help Texans out and let them know that that's our land and the Mexicans need to get off our land. At which point, Santa Anna does go back to Mexico, promptly declares himself president for like the 4th time / military dictator, and then instantly attacks U.S. troops that are on the border there.
How is he able? Wait, how? How do you just go back and declare yourself leader again after being ousted to another country? Like, so, and people just said, okay.
Yeah, basically because Mexico, like, immediately after they gained their independence, they have no idea what the fuck they're doing. And Santa Anna was well enough loved that everybody's like, oh, okay, fine, makes sense. That's fine. How did Napoleon come back like 18 times in France? It's the same shit. It's like, oh, time of need, we need you. It's okay.
Man, I get it. That's crazy, though. Okay, all right. Well, so he... back from his vacation,
he comes back, to Cuba. He attacks. Polk goes to Congress and says, we just got attacked by the Mexicans on the north side of the Rio Grande, which is what we own. And Santa Anna's going, no, dude, you were clearly on Mexican land and you invaded Mexico. So both sides are like, you invaded us and you invaded us. But because Mexico shot some shots at the American troops, Congress is like, we're going to war. So they declare war.
Yeah, that's enough.
And it's not a very long one. And the end result is we pay like 16 or $17 million to Mexico for them to give us like all of fucking Southwest in California, and then set the Texas border at the Rio Grande. So
we got everything we wanted.
We got everything we wanted for a very small price. Well,
I mean, they probably knew all the great things we were going to do with it, and so they were fine giving it to us on the cheap.
Now. The war is over in 1848. Polk gets his manifest destiny dream. Texas, California, all the Southwest, he's got it all. Ironically, because he did this, it sparks the massive debate about whether or not we should expand slavery or not. Like, up to this point, like, it's always been in the forefront, but there's not really been any new territories to really start adding more swaths of states.
To talk about
and now we have, oh shit, there is like 18 fucking potential states here.
Yeah.
What are we gonna do about these states that are all relatively in the southern region? We don't want them to become slave states. Well, the North doesn't want to become slave states. The South obviously wants them to become slave states.
Some do, some don't.
And that's directly,
why we had a whole little tiff about it.
It leads directly into the whole bleeding Kansas thing. Now, Polk, he's going to run 1 term. He's going to die real quick after, leaving as president. He dies being considered the worst president in the United States up to that point.
So he's like mission accomplished and punched his time card, and that's it.
And this isn't me like saying he's like everybody in the United States at the time was
at the time the newspaper articles were saying this guy was trash.
Yeah, they were saying the dude was trash. Ironically, though, after his death and kind of starting the whole like bleeding Kansas, which kind of leads into the Civil War thing, several of his slaves that were on the Mississippi plantation, those troublesome slaves, they are going to escape, join the North, and then fight for the North in free men of color units, directly earning their freedom against this horrible human who liked to buy children. He bought children.
Yeah. Yeah. But see, that's why you can't put all your troublesome slaves in one basket.
Yeah.
I mean,
spread them out a little bit.
They're gonna team up. They're gonna get out. They're gonna come for your head. Like, he's lucky all they did was get their freedom.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure there was many a Confederate slave owner that did not only lose, their slaves during that
Property.
whole conflict. Yeah. That's our 11th president, guys. Yay, another white slave owner.
That's it for this week in Historic Hindsight. Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review, and join us next week when we talk about camels in the United States Army for some reason, for a short time.